Right, welcome back. This is my junk journal how to part 2, and we're going to glue the fabric to the cardboard outside. So the fabric needs to be at least for this size journal, for our 7.5 by 5 inch journal, we need the fabric to be 14 by 9, around that sort of size at least. We're going to cut it down so that it's 3/4 of an inch bigger than the cardboard. We're going to do a fold over journal, so I'm doing quite a neat journal rather than a shabby one. So have a look at your fabric and decide which way. I'm going to have this as my front piece, so I'm going to glue it over this way and have it something like that. This fabric is a lightweight furnishing fabric. The thinner your fabric, the more careful you have to be with the glue, the way I do it. You don't have to glue the fabric, you could stitch it, you could just glue the edges, all sorts of things will work. I like it glued all over and quite thoroughly, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to use Polly. See there, good girl, go back there, good girl. I'm going to use PVA. And this is, now I've turned it over, this is the front of my journal, so it's going to go down like this. So let's start. I'm actually using Aleene's Tacky Glue. I've used Mod Podge before. Mod Podge works fine. Mod Podge is watered down PVA, that's my understanding anyway, so it is a little bit trickier to get a thin enough coat that it doesn't come through the fabric, because you don't really want too much glue showing through the fabric. So I'm going to put quite a generous, I quite like this glue because it doesn't dry too quickly. If you're using quick dry versions, you probably just do one side at a time. So quite a generous smudging of glue. Store this upside down, and then I've got a silicone spatula which I just use to spread the glue out. I'm doing it on the fabric. I don't really mind if a bit goes onto the fabric, it won't hurt. It might even help a bit. This will make the card a bow a bit. Any sort of liquid that you put onto card will cause it to buckle a little bit, but the drying should sort that out, or the way we dry it should sort that out. Okay, so I've done that as best I can with no gaps, and I'm just going to flip that over, put it onto my fabric. Do that down, and just for this, just so that I don't get it on my table, so you'll see a bit of glare, I'm just going to smooth it out on this side. So I'm using a bone folder. Try and make sure it's all stuck down. Just going to wipe this because I don't want it try and make sure it's right to the corners. Although again, we are going to stitch as well in my version, so that's not too vital. And now we're going to let this dry. You can see that it's quite bendy. It's made the whole thing quite moist, I guess. Not a nice word. So the way I'm going to dry it initially is to put it under this glass mat. I've got an old flat iron. As I've told you before, one of the reasons Molly likes lying here is because there's a radiator under the back of this desk. So this won't actually take too long to dry out, but I probably will leave it a few hours. In the meantime, I'm going to cover, I've made a smaller one. I think this is 7 by 4.5. I'm going to cover this one as well with this fabric. So we will actually have 3 on the go. The original one that I haven't completed, which gave me the idea for doing this. The one we're going to do throughout as a complete tutorial, hopefully from start to finish. And I'll do a 3rd one as well, just so that we've got things, you can see variations basically. So I will be back in a little while with part 3.